In 2016, Undi 18 was a student movement led by Kira Yusri and Tharma Pillai with the ultimate goal of amending the federal constitution to lower the voting age from the current 21 to 18. Now, being able to vote at the age of 18 is nothing peculiar. Malaysia is one out of only 10 countries in the world with a minimum voting age of 21. In 2017, they handed over a memorandum to the then Prime Minister, Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak. Undi 18 also sought for lowering the age of elected federal and state representatives to 18 years old and for automatic voter registration to be implemented in Malaysia. The bill became part of Pakatan Harapan's election manifesto. Syed Saddiq tabled the first reading, and Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad tabled the second and third reading to members of parliament in 2019 for this to become law. The bill was passed with a unanimous 211 votes from the Dewan Rakyat and another unanimous 47 votes from the Dewan Negara. The bill received royal assent by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, and 6 days later, it was gazetted into law on 10th September 2019. The Election Commission, or EC, was supposed to implement this change by July of this year. However, they have cited the MCO as reason to the delay of Undi 18, and its chairman said that automatic voter registration and Undi 18 will only be able to be in place after 1st September 2022. The EC has been heavily criticized for this delay. On March 27th, a peaceful protest was held in front of Parliament, led by youth leaders of Undi 18 to push for the implementation of lowering the voting age to 18. Whether Undi 18 is mobilized this year or not, it will directly impact 1.2 million Malaysians who are between the ages of 18 and 20. I spoke to 27-year-old Rizal Redzuan, a communications practitioner, who feels that Malaysians are not quite ready for Undi 18.
Are you for or against Undi 18?
I might be the younger generation, but I would say I am not because of political party alliance, but I am against it at the moment.
Against it? Why?
Yeah, because I believe it's not something that is supposed to suddenly let people vote, but it all starts with education. So I actually had this idea in the shower earlier that people need to learn what voting is all about, the processes, and also understanding like how people say kids are not being taught about taxes in school, in high school. So being taught politics instead of just learning the Sejarah 101, but actually explaining and having in the syllabus of like what the different political parties have, which I will never see it happening because as we know in the books that by the ministry is always tied to one particular mindset.
Yep.
So it all starts from education from one onwards. So without education, there's no point of having this Undi 18 out of the blue, and people who are close to their parents might just follow what their parents say.
Exactly.
Or people who rebel might be like, in Malay, like I just want to like go against what my parents do. So I think no, I'm against it.
Of course, I also had to hear from the individuals who would be directly impacted by Undi 18. I spoke with 19-year-olds Jen and Zam, who have an optimistic view to Malaysia's current political scenario.
You guys are 19 this year.
Yes.
Do you think that your friends who are of your age, who are 18, do you think they are ready to vote right now?
There are some of us who are filled with enough knowledge to understand and know how our vote affects the cabinets, but there are some individuals that I think are not ready and prepared to go out and for elections.
Why do you think they're not ready?
I think they're not ready because of the lack of understanding and knowledge about the election itself.
It's a 50-50 because some of them, personally, I think they don't look into the bigger picture.
Jen, what do you understand about the current ruling government? How would you describe them?
What I currently understand from what I heard around on social media and from the public itself, from the netizens, is that there's no apparent party of the current government. But I think, in my opinion, personally, our Prime Minister is doing his very best, and all of our other ministers are doing their very best. And I think that currently a new election is not needed, because I see that our government is very, very stable right now. And like, even though we see some other politicians who are suggesting and are going to the Istana Negara to meet the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, I don't think that is necessary because of the current government that is very, very stable, in my opinion.
Zam, what about you?
Yeah, I agree mostly as well, because like currently it's a mess out there. So
Why do you say that?
I feel like we don't need. I feel like with everything going on, the pandemic, and we need to focus on the economy of Malaysia and stuff. So feel like we don't need a new election.
I also sat down with a strong supporter of Undi 18 alongside Kira and Tharma, and Nurul Ezzaty Hasbullah, who is currently at the University of Oxford for her master's in International Health and Tropical Medicine under the Rhodes Scholarship.
Can you tell us why is Undi 18 so important to Malaysia?
Well, thank you for the question. I do think Undi 18, what it is, it stands for the youth wanting to push for their voice to matter more in politics. I think for the longest time, the youth have always felt like the older people have called onto them to step up and rise, but that platform was never there. And even when politics as a system of democracy happened, the youth, 18 to 20-year-olds, it's just 18 to 20. When you think about it, it's not even that big of a year, but their needs, which is very unique because they're transitioning from middle school to university, have not really been a center of discussion. So what this vote does, it forces politicians and our future leader, I think that's a better way to put it, the leaders of the country, to, hey, sit down and listen to our needs, because our voice and votes also matter. So I think that's what Undi 18 encapsulates. It's that drive to be heard.
And I think these 18-year-olds or 19-year-olds, they form a majority of the population in our country.
They do.
So a lot of things will affect them inevitably. But on the other hand, do you think that Malaysia is ready? If, let's say, it were to be implemented now, they're all calling for it to be implemented, as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But do you think we're ready for it to be, we as in I'm emphasizing on the 18-year-olds primarily. Yeah. Do you think they're ready with the kind of exposure or education that we've been receiving so far? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the question of readiness is like a misnomer. Really, this Undi 18 has been going on, has been approved 2 years ago. So there's two parts of readiness into like the structure. Yes, because we got a bipartisan, Undi 18 got a bipartisan vote, like 211 out of 222, if I'm not mistaken, Dewan Rakyat. So people were like, yes, leaders, even they, at the point of time when they voted, felt that it was time, like 18-year-olds were ready. So it feels kind of weird now for them to backtrack and say, maybe not. So they had 2 years to implement this. So that's one side. Let's put that aside. Now the question is like whether 18 and 20-year-olds are ready. See, again, that in of itself, you need to question what does ready mean? Because in Malaysia, at 18, you can get married, you can drive, you can get a loan, you can even be tried in court as an adult. So tell me, when people ask me, what are they ready? And tell me, what does ready mean? What does that mean? And when do we know when we reach that point? In fact, when you think about it, perhaps once we have Undi 18 and 18-year-olds can vote, maybe that will be more of a push for politicians, for leaders to engage more of a youth. So it's a chicken and egg question. And in fact, that question itself is loaded and quite a misnomer. So that's where I stand on that.
So looking at the current situation, do you think that when we ask whether these 18-year-olds are ready, do you think they possess the political maturity that they need? When you vote, you have to think about the country's future, how it will impact the generations to come. What kind of policies should be implemented for the country? Do you think they possess that maturity to decide wisely?
I think in Malaysia, there are structural barriers in place that inhibits young people to develop their political voice. I think it's a structural issue. It's not the youth's fault that you, the country, stop the youth from being politically active, for instance, in university, in middle school. There are laws in place that stops the youth from exercising that voice. And now you're out here telling the youth like, hey, you're not ready. And maybe like in a few years' time, you'll be ready and we'll give you the vote. At the same time, it's not as if there are active political engagement suddenly at 21. Like that's not there either. So that limit seems very arbitrary, and it is devoid from the structural issues that stops the youth from even developing that political know-how.
So are Jen and Zam ready to vote?
Do you agree that we implement Undi 18 now? And if you agree, would you vote if, let's say, we had an election this year? Would you go out and vote this year? Okay. And if you were to vote, would you know who to vote for?
I think that there should be a way to go out for our elections instead of gathering at one spot. Like we know currently there's a pandemic and we want to avoid the cases rising up because of politics. But I think if they were to implement it now, they should. But there should be a way for people to vote. Like I understand, like if we go for online voting, it would be very, very difficult for those who live in rural areas. So I think that we should reconsider how we should do it before we actually implement it.
I would say I'm not against Undi 18, and like previously what Jenna said, we need to think about the mechanisms to vote for everyone to vote. So for the people I want to vote for, I feel like I need to look into every party before I have to reconsider voting.
The disparity between rural and urban communities in Malaysia has been a long-standing issue. Whether it's access to internet connectivity, education, or even the basic necessity of water, we can't deny the reality of this disparity.
Because people would say, yes, they have social media and stuff like that, but you forget those in the perkampungan and stuff like that. So, like, for example, there's a politician which I know the son. So, people in the spectrum say, oh, he's not a good politician, but he helps his rakyat, he helps his people. So, imagine someone in the pedalaman community who does not have the exposure, and they just vote based off whatever, they like the face of the person. Yeah. So it won't be accurate. So to me, Undi 18, not for now, unless everyone's like educated, open-minded, strong proficiency in English. But then again, we are looking at the city people, but we're not understanding those in the urban communities, like the perkampungan and stuff like that. So it's a bit, as much as I like to say the younger generation is more educated kind of thing, but it's hard because we are in the city, in KL, PJ, and stuff like that, and we are exposed.
From this Undi 18 initiative, were there any, on your side, were there any research or surveys conducted among the youth, whether they want this to happen? Because I think we can hear voices a lot from those residing in urban areas, in the cities. That they want their voices to be heard and they want Undi 18 to be in place. What about those in rural areas outside of the cities who form a bigger part of the youth population? Have any research or surveys been conducted among those youth outside of city areas on whether they are ready for this or whether they're aware even of this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Before I answer that, I must say that although I'm a strong supporter of Undi 18, the people who really pushed this forward is the Undi 18 organization. Kira and Sarma, they really were the one who pushed this 2 years ago and galvanized with Ezzaty to really push this through day one right yet. So having said that, like they are really the main drivers. I'm just here like showing my support however I can. In terms of the data, I can't cite anything specifically that I know of, but I do know they did do a litmus test of where is the youth in Malaysia right now, right? But I do remember this one data point that I came across. It says like, I think it was conducted in 2018 or 2017. At that point, 70% of young Malaysians say that they don't care about politics. So if you take that number, you can just like extrapolate and think, oh, maybe they just don't care. It's like either a yes or a no. They're just like whatever, right? And that in of itself is a problem. I see that is a huge problem for the nation. Apathy of the youth in political agendas and in leadership of the country, I think, is a sign that we need to step back and think about what is happening, because they are really the future of the nation. And if they don't care about how politics run, democracy in our country is run, that is when we need to check ourselves.
18-year-olds in Malaysia can get married, can buy property, and if charged for a crime, they will be tried as an adult. But are they equipped with enough education and political literacy to be able to vote?
Do you think there should have been more exposure, perhaps maybe in your sejarah class, more exposure on the country's political systems? Do you think there should have been more teachings on that, Jen?
In my opinion, yes, there should have been more political, like all this political knowledge about our country and its cabinets and all. But I think the cons would also be that there are some students who aren't quite open-minded to the idea of that, and there would be opinions that they would be unable to accept.
Let's go back to schools, our school systems, our syllabus, our sejarah classes and everything. Do you think that it needs to be injected with more elements of, more teachings on the political system, on the country's economy, so that it can give a better holistic view to these students from school, so that when they graduate, they have a better understanding of what they're being thrown into reality? Do you think it needs to be improved or enhanced to better prepare also these kids?
100%. I think generations now definitely need more political engagement. At the same time, it's not as if people who are 40, 30, 50, 60-year-olds had that when they were younger. All that they also learned. It's not like there was that during when they were working. All of their political know-how they developed by watching the news, if any even, right? It's like saying that, oh, the youth are not ready. It's because they don't have that political education. And I'm just asking, but the older people never had that either. Neither did they have that when they were in work, and they still had a good grasp.
Yeah.
Like at the same time, I just want to go back to the whole chicken and egg issue.
Yeah.
Once you put in Undi 18, that becomes the impetus for leaders to view young people as political actors. And that will push them to inject more political education in our sejarah, political education, our civics. So I do think that is what will push them to actually think about us seriously.
The delay to the implementation of Undi 18. Are the voices of the youth being feared upon?
Why do you think that, while some quarters, some parties are really rallying for this Undi 18 to happen now, but there are some of other groups of people who call for its delay or saying it's not supposed to happen now, it's not the right time. Why do you think these two differing views?
Again, the people in this different two groups are not monoliths. There are like a lot of diversity in reasons as to why they believe what they believe in, right? So again, there are people who don't think Undi 18 is the time now, who actually cite what you just said, like, oh, 18-year-olds are too young, they don't know, we need political engagement first, yada yada. Okay, I'm like, okay, cool, let's put that aside. But I do believe there is a part of the political machinery that are genuinely scared of the youth voting against them. I think they have a way of doing things that they're comfortable with. They have a way of, like, their voter base, they know their voter base, they know their grassroots. But when you throw in the youth in the mix, they're like, oops, we don't know how to engage this group. We've never had to engage this group. And this group is way more politically active than some other of our groups. They can't be tricked with just simple gifts. Then how do we do this?
Yes.
I honestly think that's a big part of it. They're actually scared with the youth voting against them. And rightly so, because the youth have been some of the most vocal, albeit on social media, during this pandemic. Right? We've called out Dua Darjat. We've called out the PM calling for the state of emergency. We've been very vocal about all these things. And frankly, I think they're scared.
Catch the second part of this episode where we talk about Malaysian politicians and the power of technology on how it has shaped the way we think and learn. Oh yeah, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Thank you for watching.